told you friends, last weekend I've released my fingerstyle arrangement of Stromae Quand C'est with the PDF and tab on my Patreon, and I promise in that video that I will be teaching it to you here in a free tutorial that I upload to YouTube. If you don't have the PDF, don't worry, you will have the tabs here on screen so you can follow along. But if you want the full printable PDF, then you can get it on my Patreon. Your support means the world to me and will help me kick start this new guitar channel on par with my ukulele channel and Fingerstyle Academy. So the piece starts with just the chord progression, and you have an E minor chord in first position, that's 2 and 3. And you can use PIMA if you want, but I find it to be a little bit too scratchy on the bass string, so I use PPIM. Just gives me a little bit more control. While playing that, I will leave my second and third, and I will use my fourth finger to play the A note for the A minor chord. Obviously, you have to let go of your second finger to play the open A string, and that's just PIMI. And then when you let go of your second finger, this will help you set it up to play the low F sharp, and then the B. What you want to do when you play that F sharp, you want to make sure you don't accidentally do a pull off to the E, right? So you have to be very careful on how to pad your finger out so that there's no pull off. And if you can't do it, you can always stop the F sharp with your thumb. That will be very quiet. And watch the syncopation here. It is 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2 and. So the second note is on the and of 2, or if you know your rhythm, the first note is a dotted quarter. And then we would repeat this chord progression, but instead of ending on the B minor in second inversion, we're going to end on a B7 chord, just to set up the 5-7 that leads us into the tonic. Okay, so playing the intro, which is just the chord progression. When you play that B7, make sure you don't blast it open, because that will create this ugly sound. You want to make sure you lead into the verse, so that's gentle. Okay, that will set you up for the beginning of the verse. Watch the resolution here when you play the B7. There's a D sharp that needs to go to an E, but we do not resolve it. We resolve the E and the bass, right? So make sure you connect those two notes. And that's the beginning of the verse. So for the verse, the first edition, because it's a little bit different than the second one, you will stretch your fourth finger to play the 5th fret, that's 2 Gs. Watch that bass line, right? When you play that open A, that's your chance to make the position shift. Right? Now those A's, you want to sort of play them loud because you're going to slide them down back to the G. So that's fourth finger. The F sharp being played with the third finger. So just watch out for that. And watch that syncopation. Same. That's 3 and 1. You're gonna position shift your third finger to the 7th fret. And you can use your second and your first, it doesn't really make a difference. And then an open B. So the lick is one figure. Now when you play that open B, if you're lucky and had a good D sharp here, you can slide it or ghost slide it to get the G, F sharp, and then back to the repetition of the verse. now we're going to end it differently because we need to be able to play that E7 chord. And if we're stuck here, I find it a little bit hard to get a clean E7 chord, B7 chord. So what I've done is I've just changed the way you play the ending of the verse to play differently. So instead of going to the 7th fret, we're going to play the A, but on the 2nd fret on the 3rd string. And here's a very important thing with your technique. When you play the 2 Gs, and then you go for the As, you want to let go of the Gs, so when you do the pull-off, it's a clean pull-off and you have no finger on the guitar, so that allows you to make the shift to that B7 chord. If you leave your fingers too long for legato or good technique, it will be too late to be able to do the B7 chord. I have nothing on the guitar now. I can position the B7 chord. And then I'm going to resolve that D sharp. Unlike the intro where I resolve it down an octave, I'm going to resolve this D sharp where it belongs. And notice how my fingers moved. Right? I'm muting everything. Just your standard open position chord shapes. There's nothing weird here. For a grade 5 student, you should be able to play this. Just watch the rhythm and watch the continuation of that bass line. Ta-da, 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 ta-da. So just watch out that there is this continuity of the bass track while the melody is on top. Here in bar 14, I am playing the G and the A with my 2nd finger, and then I am partial barring the bottom 2 strings. Then I'm letting go of the bar. Then you're gonna play open low E and then E. I believe in my YouTube channel I played an open E and then a B by accident. Both notes work because they're both part of the E minor chord. But the point is, after you do that, whether you play the B or the E, you want to make a position shift to play the B here and the D on the 7th fret. And the reason I did that is because it just makes it more melodic. Here in the chorus, I can get that nice vibrato that makes it sound a lot more epic than just going. And you're gonna hear that thin effect in the second way when we play the chorus the second time. We are gonna play it up here and it's gonna sound thinner, but I contrast that with the melodic way here to add that little bit of difference between the choruses. Now when you play the 9th and the 7th fret, use your middle finger to mute the low E string. So that's ta-da-ba-ba. And I added that percussive note just because it sounded cool to me. Originally it was, but that was a little bit too open, too broad. I wanted it to make it a little bit tighter, so I experiment with, and that just sounded good to me and easy to play and organic enough that I don't have to think about it, which means it's easier for you to learn. And now you're going to position shift to the 4th fret, but you cannot use your 1st finger because you need it for what comes next. So you're going to use your 2nd finger for the partial bar. 2nd finger plays the melody note, slide down, again it's more vocal. So just watch out for that technique. So you have we're going to resolve that F sharp, not where it needs to be not where it needs to go. We're going to resolve it down an octave. And here we're going to play the verse. You can play it exactly the same way as you did before, or you can play it where instead of doing 2 Gs on the 5th fret, you can play 1 G on the 5th fret and 1 G on the open G string. And if you hold everything, it's gonna sound more atmospheric. And here's a cool trick that I didn't do in the YouTube video the first time, and then the second time I did it, you sort of could barely hear it, but I was recording in real time and I didn't want to take another take just so that you hear it. But there's a little bit of a syncopation here in the bass line that sounds really cool. The syncopation isn't in the actual rhythm, it's in the technique. So what you do here is you would play the E, B, G, another G, and then you pull off your first finger, which played the B, you pull it off to play the bass note, which is an open A. That's what you want to do. And watch that rhythm here. You're just going to hold it instead of playing 2 A's. We're only going to play 1 A. It just adds a little bit of emotional depth to the melody, or emotional variety to the melody. Remember, as a fingerstyle guitarist, we do not have the power of words to communicate variety or excitement. So we have to come up with certain tricks to make the piece sound more exciting. Same trick. And here I like to add a little bit of a flamenco, a little bit of a trill. B7 chord, same as before. And here what you want to do to be able to get to that 13th fret, you can add a little bit of a rit. So instead of being rhythmic, which leaves you with no time to get that harmonic, you can just go, which gives you a split second more to be able to reach out for the 13th fret and pinch harmonic on the 13th fret while holding the D sharp on the 1st fret. And now you want to resolve that D sharp with the E. Now it's a little bit different because we are not playing the open G anymore. We're playing the low G, so we're resolving the A down an octave, which is something that I talked about in a shorts video here on this YouTube channel. I'm going to link it in the video description. But what I'm doing is, to add variety, I'm resolving the melody notes where it goes in the beginning of the bar. I'm resolving it so that the beginning of the bar is lower an octave, which gives you the chord and the harmony, but it creates this stereoscopic effect where instead of going, you're going ta. Right? So it just adds a little bit of a dimension to it because it makes the arrangement wider. Same thing here, G to the F sharp is being resolved as G to the F sharp. Same thing, instead of F sharp to G, it's F sharp to G. And because the melody note is the G and I'm holding it, I cannot go to that 7th fret, so I have to play it the thin way on the 2nd string. And here's a cool trick. When you play the 3rd fret, and then you have to play the A and the E, when you play the A and the E, you can add a bend, a slight bend to the D to give it a little bit of a wailing effect. But you do that bend while playing the bass notes. A trill. And here's something I like to do as well. So I add a bend after the open A. And then we start with the bridge riff. and it's all about adding that punchiness and energy into the arrangement. That's sequential planting to mute the open E as fast as I can to give it kind of a that staccato effect. So that's thumb, index, hammer on, then thumb, middle, slide, and then ring and middle. And when I play those open strings, I make sure they're bright and in your face. Isn't that nice? So that's... I'm holding the F sharp because I'm going to resolve it in the G. And the melody is actually F sharp, F sharp, F sharp, G, E. But the resolution is here. I do not play the F sharp multiple times. I actually save that trick of playing the proper melody to bar 40 and bar 44. But in bar 38, to create the effect of, I just use that rhythm. I add an F sharp in the bass, but instead of repeating the F sharp, I then play the B. And then I resolve it. Back to the punchiness. That's the proper melody. And now, instead of being in your face, I hide it by playing it closed, in other words, on the frets, and I give it a little bit of a vibrato. And for the last trick, but instead of playing it what I did before, open E, G, what I'm going to do is I'm going to play the open E, hammer on the G down an octave, and then, and this is a visual bracket that finishes the bridge and starts whatever comes next. It also makes people wake up if they're lost. And you sort of have to wing it. There. What I'm doing is I'm using my first finger to hammer on, barely touch the 12th frets where the natural harmonic is. And I'm using my ring finger to flick the harmonics up. Or kind of strumming up strokes. I think I definitely fluked it in the recording for YouTube when I got it on the first take. There we go. So... chorus. And this chorus is exactly the same as the first chorus, so I'm not going to go through it, but at the ending of that chorus you have, and this F sharp will resolve in the ending. And here what you want to do is you want to use block chord technique, but you only have 4 fingers and there are 5 strings. So how do you play a block chord on 5 strings when you only have 4 fingers? Well, this is how you do it. You do a full plant on strings 5, 3, 2, and 1. And when you play the block chord with your thumb, you give it a little bit of a nudge downwards to be able to play the 4th string in the same stroke. In other words, the 4th string is a hair, it's even less than a millisecond later than the 5th string. So it sounds like we've just played a block chord. But visually, if you slow down the move significantly, the D string is actually being played after the block chord because it takes time to travel from the 5th string to the 4th string. But if you do the technique properly, where when you execute the free stroke, you just bring your thumb down, it will hit the missing string. And that's how you can do 6 string or 5 string block chords. Hopefully you can see it in the camera that the 4th string is ringing. So here what I'm doing is using my pinky to mute everything. There's lots of open notes in these chords and I don't want them to ring. Again, my pinky mutes everything. and my block chords, my hand using the fingers, full plant to mute any resonance because I want that sharp staccato effect. Before I had this, and it sounded great, but it didn't sound controlled enough, so I switched to the block chord technique. You want to hold that low G. Fourth finger, slide down. Repeat. Then the second version of it, where we go up to the octave, where he says qui est le prochain. Fourth finger plays the B, slide down to the E. Right? While your fourth finger is playing that 12th fret, you can use your second and first to play 12 frets 10 and 9. The rhythm is a little bit of syncopation here. And then you're going to resolve it with the harmonics because you left this lick on the F sharp, which needs to resolve to the G. But then you need to move backwards. So how are you going to do that? Use the harmonic. Then power chord, A5 or A power chord, slide down, and then back to that position shift. Sorry. Then you repeat it. Watch that on the repeat. You have that F sharp that now gets resolved. But actually, you get the low G is the resolution, or I should say the middle G is the resolution here. I missed it. There we go. Let it hang however long you want, and then put this line in your hand, in your palm, on the bridge, and roll it to a mute. Alright friends, this is the end of the tutorial. There was so much that we covered, so I hope you get to play this piece, learn it, and if you did, then please subscribe to the channel. Consider supporting it on Patreon so that I keep uploading more content like this, and I'll see you in the next video.